In the previous video, I noted that the American Revolution provided an example, especially to Europeans, of how a people might overthrow a government they viewed as oppressive. To understand the French Revolution, we must first examine France in 1789, the moment the revolution begins. In 1789, France was considered one of the most advanced countries in Europe, at least on the surface. Economically and culturally, it stood out in several ways. With a population of about 24 million, it was the most populous nation in Europe, and its exports were second only to those of Britain. The French language held immense prestige, widely regarded as the language of education, refinement, and diplomacy. Additionally, France served as the center of the Enlightenment, producing more writers, intellectuals, and philosophers than any other country. However, French society was not modern at all. It still operated within a rigid medieval-style social structure. French society was legally divided into three distinct groups known as estates. The first estate consisted of the clergy, who were responsible for religious duties and held significant influence. The second estate was made up of the nobility, who enjoyed social privileges and often held positions of power. The third estate included everyone else, ranging from wealthy merchants to urban workers and peasants, and made up the vast majority of the population. While this system may have made sense during the Middle Ages, by the 18th century it no longer reflected the realities of French society. The third estate had expanded to include a wide range of people who were economically and socially important, such as merchants, manufacturers, lawyers, professionals, and wealthy members of the bourgeoisie, highlighting the growing mismatch between legal classifications and actual social influence. Many of these people had more money and education than members of the nobility, yet they remained legally inferior because they lacked noble titles. Growing numbers of Third Estate members believed the system was unjust and outdated. Although France remained officially absolutist, following the model established by Louis XIV, by the late 1700s this system was increasingly seen as flawed. Absolutism appeared inefficient, with a government that struggled to respond effectively to new challenges. It was also bloated, weighed down by complex bureaucracy and overlapping institutions. Many viewed it as out of touch with the needs and realities of its people, and ultimately incapable of managing a society that was rapidly modernizing economically, socially, and intellectually. Many French people believed absolutism had outlived its usefulness. They looked to Britain, not America, as their preferred model. A government with some form of representative parliament. The American Revolution did influence France, but not at first in an ideological way. Initially, the French government saw the American Rebellion as an opportunity to weaken Britain, their long-standing enemy. After losing the 7 Years' War in 1763, and with it, Canada, France sought revenge. France played a crucial role in supporting the American colonies during their fight for independence. In 1778, following the American victory at the Battle of Saratoga, France formally allied with the Americans, providing much-needed military and financial support. This assistance proved decisive a few years later at the Battle of Yorktown in 1781, where French naval and military forces helped secure a major victory over the British, effectively ensuring American independence. But this involvement came at a steep price. France spent enormous sums of money, driving the government to the brink of bankruptcy. To make matters worse, after the war, the Americans did not become loyal French trading partners. They quickly returned to Britain as their major commercial partner. Thus, the American Revolution destabilized France not through inspiration, but through financial disaster. Despite its overall wealth, France had a deeply unfair tax system that placed a disproportionate burden on certain groups. Many members of the nobility and clergy paid little or nothing in taxes, benefiting from long-standing privileges. As a result, much of the financial responsibility fell on the Third Estate, which included the vast majority of the population. Although the need for reform was widely recognized, meaningful change proved politically impossible due to resistance from those who benefited most from the existing system. The king at this time, Louis XVI, could no longer simply demand taxes the way Louis XIV had. Society had changed, literacy had risen, Enlightenment ideas were circulating, and many people now expected the government to be more responsive. Louis summoned the most prominent men in France to Versailles, to discuss reforms. They offered no useful solutions. Louis then turned to the Parlement of Paris, a high court, not a legislature, to approve new taxes. The judges refused. This situation forced the king to revive the Estates General, which was the closest thing France had to a national parliament. However, this created new problems because it had not met since 1614, 175 years earlier. As a result, no one clearly remembered how representatives were supposed to be elected, how the body should function, or even how voting procedures should be carried out, adding confusion to an already tense political situation. Calling the Estates General was like the US trying to solve a constitutional crisis by recalling an institution that last met in 1830. Before the Estates General could even begin discussing solutions, it first had to figure out how to organize itself, a task that quickly descended into confusion and conflict. This chaotic beginning marks the starting point of the French Revolution.